guys, Ron Parks here and welcome back to the channel. I want to give you a quick update on where the government is on the new stimulus plan. It's been in the news a lot. And you're probably asking yourself, is money on its way to me? Well, the stimulus package that passed earlier in March was the HEALS Act. And as you recall, many Americans received $1,200 for an individual, $2,400 for married couples, and $500 for each child. Now, there were strict limits, so not everyone received the checks. And if you were claimed as a dependent on someone else's return, you got nothing. Also, the unemployed received an extra $600 per week in unemployment benefits on top of what they got from the state. And in addition, the Paycheck Protection Program was originally implemented to give small business loans to continue to pay employees and cover other business expenses during the pandemic. All of those loans had a 1% fixed interest rate, required no collateral or guarantor, meaning owners didn't need to put anything down to pay back the loan. And it will be due in 2 years with no prepayment penalties or fees. Loan payments will also be deferred for 6 months, and during that time, interest will accrue, but only at 1%. But the overall goal of these loans was to keep workers employed during the pandemic. Now, the problem with the plan is that many companies who did not really need the money applied for it, and the program ran out of funds really quickly. And then there was a second round, and that also ran out quickly. Multi-billion-dollar companies took the money when they really didn't need it. And you might ask yourself, why? Well, because why not? The government was offering it, and if they kept employees on the payroll for 8 weeks after they received the money, part or all of it would be forgiven. Now, under some revised plans, any new money that goes out to companies will have to have 300 or less employees and have seen a revenue loss of more than 50%. After the last 2 rounds, the government is quite gun-shy on where the money is going, and they don't want companies that don't need it to get it. Now, there have been lots of talk on what is happening to the new stimulus plan in Congress. Don't believe what you read or see if you are told we know what will be in the final package, because we don't. The Republicans in the Senate released their version of the next stimulus package for negotiations with Democrats. The HEALS Act would authorize another check of up to $1,200 a person. And here's why you won't get it right away. Republicans don't want to spend more money on a new stimulus, and their reluctance is apparent in the new bill. Some Republicans are shouting out, "I want a better package," as they're up for re-election. And currently, unemployment recipients are receiving an extra $600 per week on top of their standard benefits. And that stopped for 25 million Americans last week. The Republicans would like to cut that to $200 through September. And the lawmakers have prioritized the inclusion of liability protections for businesses, which would shield them from the coronavirus lawsuits while not giving funds to state and local governments. They also want to commit to a new calculation that unemployment benefits will be no greater than 75% of the recent wages with a certain ceiling. And if this did happen, states will have a hard time adjusting their computer systems to calculate these changes, as they're quite complex, which will also delay any funds. And in order to qualify for the second stimulus payment, you will likely need to have earned less than $75,000 for an individual or $150,000 for a married or joint filers. Now, leaders from the two parties have to reconcile the gap between their two plans. The Republicans tightly focused $1 trillion HEALS Act and the much broader Democrats' $3 trillion HEROES Act, which was passed in May, by the way, in the Democrat-controlled House. Now, that bill from the Democrats was not voted on by the Senate, and it's still sitting there. So the two bills share some provisions in common, including funding for stimulus checks, additional money for coronavirus testing, money for schools, and the payroll protection program. But the GOP legislation puts a much greater emphasis on legal protections for businesses. And as for those payments to companies that really didn't need it, it became clearer that those public companies that had good capital and other ways to get funding in the capital markets were asked to give back the money. Now, some did, and some didn't. And as you know, reporting from the US government is not great. The two parties have just days to find common ground before the August 7th deadline, which was imposed by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, to pass the new bill before the current session ends. The Democrats have said that they will not move forward unless the additional $600 in unemployment benefits continues. They have the upper hand in this fight. As many Republicans in the Senate, they continue to fight with McConnell over the allocation of funds. And with an election in November, a lot of these Republicans are vulnerable to defeat. And the last thing they want to do is to come across as not being interested in the working class, but more interested in big business. Currently, the two sides are at a standstill. Now, to summarize, here are the differences in the two plans side by side. In the Republican plan, $1,200 checks to all adult filers unless you are a single filer with income exceeding $99,000, and $136,500 for a head of household, and $198,000 for joint filers with no children. An additional extra unemployment insurance benefit of $200 until September 30th, and then a new calculation at 70% of your previous earnings with an unknown cap. No protection for evictions, and be aware that eviction protections ended last week for renters. No money for state and local governments, and a liability shield for 5 years for businesses, schools, and medical facilities. No cash for food stamps, but they did add a deduction for a 3-martini lunch expense for businesses. And they also added other unrelated things, where, for example, they want to put an FBI headquarters next to the Trump Hotel to protect that hotel from another hotel going up on the space and causing competition. I mean, it all sounds crazy. On the Democrats' plan, they want to continue the $600 initial unemployment assistance, which already expired on July 27th. They want to give $1,200 checks to individuals and $1,200 per dependent. And the income eligibility requirements will probably be very similar to the Republicans' plan. The Democrats want to extend the protection for evictions. They want to give $1 trillion in funding for state and local governments. And they're fighting back as the prioritization for big businesses and special interests is not where they want the money to go. And an open issue also relates to whether independent contractors, freelancers, and gig workers continue to receive the extra $600 a week in benefits. Those benefits ended this week for at least 25 million Americans. The two sides met yesterday, and it turned out to be a failure. Everyone is in their corners and not budging. So I see this as the top line of a $3 billion plan and the bottom line of a $1 billion plan. So it seems logical that a compromise will end up between these two numbers. So we have a gap, $1 trillion from the Republicans and $3 trillion from the Democrats. Well, it seems logical that a compromise will end up between the two. But for those out of work, you might not see additional unemployment checks for a few months. I am sure this will all come to a head in the next week, as there's an August 7th deadline to get this done. And unless this is extended, neither the House nor the Senate is scheduled to return until after Labor Day. And if this does not come together quickly, and they do not extend evictions, it is estimated that 25 million people will be evicted from their homes. And you can see the repercussions on the economy. And those people will have no place to live, will have a hard time going back to work, and a hard time taking care of their kids. So please stay tuned, and I will give you an update when we have more concrete information coming out of Congress. I feel that the Senate will make a deal before they leave for recess or extend the negotiation time, and I hope that's the case. I also hope that you enjoyed the update, and please smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm because it helps me greatly, and subscribe to the channel. It's lots of fun putting these videos together, so until next time, thanks.